What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on What If Deku Had the Power of the Four Heavenly Beasts Part 7. So, I just gonna drop this news bomb. So I was in debating before uploading this, or even recording this, to be honest with you, about if I want to do solo leveling, which is gonna come back, or Heavenly Beasts. So I called up my head moderator. And I was talking with him, and he decided that Heavenly Beasts should come back instead of solo leveling right now. Don't worry, solo leveling is going to be, done. But right now, Heavenly Beasts is obviously being recorded. So, if you guys want to go thank him for that, you guys can head over to the Discord. And he's the head mod there. Yeah. But, speaking of Discord, I'm going to say thanks to the, people who joined the Discord. Thanks Zach the Price 2, Rainbow Diamond Productions, and Benjamin for joining the Discord. Now, if you want to join the Discord, in the link description down below, go ahead. Click it. We talk, we chill. There's tons of different things. There's even a new Daimonchi Discord that I created as well. If you go into announcements on my Discord, you'll find a link to that there. You can head over there. It's pretty cool. And I'm the owner of it, so, there's at least been some sort of work put into it. But, yeah, let's jump straight into this. Where we last left off, Izuku had just, won the race. He obviously had almost no issue with doing it, and even though he didn't activate his Azure Dragon form, he still did it with relatively ease. The next up was the cavalry race. Izuku had 10 million points, so no one wanted to team up with him. This was obviously an issue for Izuku. While looking around, he noticed that everyone was kind of looking away from him and was like hiding out, trying not to actually even join up with Izuku, which caused Izuku momentary strife until he remembered, oh yeah, wait a minute. He just decided to team up with the final people that came around. Luckily, Bakugo decided to team up with Izuku. Now, Bakugo decided to team up with Izuku for a plethora of reasons, but one of his main reasons was because he thought Izuku would be wants to help him get into a decent position. Him and Izuku were still somewhat allies. They weren't really enemies, and yes, they were rivals, of course, but Bakugo decided to set this aside. He decided that Izuku would be riding on top, knowing that in any other position, Izuku's power would be not as useful. Of course, after that happened, Kirishima came around and joined their team as well, giving them a strong base and a strong offense. Of course, Izuku was trying to think of who else they could have join when it clicked. Or, not that I say it clicked for him, more like it clicked for the person that came at him. It was a girl. This girl had pink hair and weird steampunk-style goggles. She introduced herself as Mei Hatsume, and she asked to, join. Izuku didn't say no, much to Bakugo's annoyance. Of course, it wasn't that much of an issue. Eventually, after she joined, they all decided that it was time to prepare. Mei was going to be at the bottom. Izuku's main plan was to transform into his Azure Dragon form. Of course, electricity would crackle off every now and then, but he had a basic understanding of his abilities with space. He knew he also had somewhat of ability to do something with time, but he didn't know the full extent of it, and rather deciding against trying it out in a very experimental field where one thing goes wrong and you lose a friend. So Izuku decided to end up playing it more safely. After transforming in his form, he knows he could only last for about around maybe 10 to 20 minutes before he is out. Like, his form cannot be sustained anymore. So he took a deep breath and looked around. He saw that there wasn't much around them that he could use as an easy way to, well, build up anything. But then again, he knew that it wasn't going to be easy with what he was trying to do. Izuku got on top, downing the 10 million point headband. They started running, Bakugo using his explosions with Mei's boots to bounce them up into the air. Of course, it wasn't a foolproof plan, but it was decent enough to get them going. Eventually, after some time and a lot of patience, they finally got a decent attack strategy. The timer starts. Tons of people were going after them, but with the combined efforts of Kirishima and Bakugo, they were able to guard, defend, or even move or dodge out of the way. So it wasn't like the personnel could do much against them. Eventually, Izuku decided that it was time to actually get serious, confusing most of them because he really didn't explain his plan. They didn't know what he was talking about, so Bakugo was the first to ask Izuku what he meant by that. Izuku stated it quite simply. He said, "Well, I'm just gonna let us fly," which confused Bakugo quite a bit, until he eventually understood what Izuku meant, which nearly caused him to black out from the pure aspect alone of Izuku actually choosing to commit that action. Bakugo said, "You better not, you shitty Deku." But Deku laughed at Bakugo and said, "Well, who likes to be free falling?" This confused everyone else because most people didn't understand what Izuku was going to do. But after they were up in the air, they understood what he was meaning real well. They started falling towards the earth. Obviously, they were really high, so their traveling speed wasn't big by any means. While falling, Izuku just sat back and relaxed, while almost everyone else was kind of insane. They asked Izuku if he had a plan, and Izuku stated quite simply that he was already in his turtle form, allowing him to disperse the shockwaves when they land, causing no injury to them, allowing them complete and total control. And worst case scenario, I can always contain the heat in my Zulian form, my Vermilion Phoenix form, and hope to pray to God that I have good enough control. Most of them didn't like Izuku's second half of his sentence because that meant that he might not have good enough control to make sure that none of them died. But they all decided to trust Izuku on the current situation because it was either that or death, so they really didn't have that many options. Their speed towards the ground slowly increased, falling quicker and quicker and quicker as Izuku just was calmly chilling. Eventually, they reached terminal velocity, falling so quickly that they slowly started to come into the view of the arena itself. Most people were in shock and horror. They were confused what happened. Izuku counted down, and he heard, while they were falling, thankfully, that the game had ended, and that they were the winners. This caused Izuku to smile as he then transformed to Zuzulian form and got below everyone else before activating his ability to contain shockwaves, and then they hit the ground. They hit the ground at a pretty devastating rate, so it was actually kind of bad. They hit it so hard that they could even hear the ground shatter beneath them. They heard Izuku's legs shatter as well. Of course, Izuku redirected all the energy back into the ground, but it didn't mean that he wasn't weak as well. Luckily, he was lucky enough to not be injured nearly as much. So, they were able to get back up. This confused almost everyone as they just saw this boy land on the ground without an issue in the world and just get up and act like everything's fine. This confused most people, not understanding how the boy had completed this action, but realizing that they didn't have any room to ask and were just thankful that everyone else was, well, okay, they decided against taking any further action for the time being. Izuku smiled as he then quickly dashed out of the area. Eventually, Izuku knew that he was going to have to get serious, way more serious than what he was before, God. So, since Izuku was understanding that he needed to get way more serious, that he needed to get way more serious, he just sat meditating in his Azuro Dragon form, just calmly sitting. Of course, some time passed, and eventually, a kid from his class entered the room. This kid's name was Ojiro. Izuku knew Ojiro. He didn't know him well, but he still knew Ojiro, so it confused him to just see Ojiro enter. He was about to ask, but then Ojiro raised his hand and said, "Now, I know you like pulling crazy stunts, okay? But right now, crazy stunts is not something you want to be doing." This confused Izuku a lot. Before Ojiro eventually said that his stunts, even though they were really well done, gave issues of their own. And since his stunts were well known, seeing how he had just seen it, he also knew that the guy he was fighting against would be really dangerous for Izuku. So Ojiro ended up saying, "Izuku, you're fighting against a very specific opponent. Now, I don't know if you know of this opponent, but he has the ability for what I see, to mind control you. He used it on me and mind controlled me, forcing me to do his bidding. This is obviously a situation. Of course, there was nothing I could do about it, but you, on the other hand, should be able to do something about it." So Izuku was really confused. He didn't understand what he meant, but he thanked his friend for saying that, as he then got his stuff on and left. He prepared to enter the arena, and that's where I'm going to leave this off. Right there before he enters the arena. If you guys liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, goodbye.